And we'll continue with the 7th chapter of The Witch Herself. There was no Dutch apple pie for dinner. There was, in fact, almost no dinner at all. Mother had opened a can of mushroom soup and mixed it with chicken noodle. There was a jar of peanut butter on the table and a box of crackers, and Mrs. Morley sat by the window while the others ate, a faraway look in her eyes that frightened Lynn just to see it. "Aren't you feeling well, Sylvia?" Father asked, watching her from his end of the table. There was no reply. Lynn and Judith looked at their father. Stevie was dropping pieces of crackers in his soup. "I thought we were going to have pie," he said after a bit, trying to get a conversation going. "You said we were going to have a pie, Mom." In answer, however, Mrs. Morley turned around and stared straight at Father. "I think it's just terrible what they are doing to that poor woman," she said. "Why are they hounding her like this? Who cares about an old death certificate? Richard, I want you to call the sheriff's office tomorrow and tell them to leave her alone. Mrs. Tuggle has suffered enough over the years without having to be reminded of her brother's death all over again." Lynn stared at her mother and then at her father. Mother talked as though she were making a speech, as though she had been coached on what to say. Her eyes still held that faraway look and her lips moved mechanically. Mrs. Tuggle had done it already. Obviously, she had made a new potion stronger than anything she had given Mother before. "Go to the sheriff's office tomorrow," she said, "and tell them that there is no point whatsoever in demanding that death certificate. Tell them to just forget about it, and tell them that the old cemetery should stay right where it is. I want you to tell them that, too. They'll listen to you. You're on the zoning commission. You have influence." "Sylvia," Father said, "what's happened to you? You know I can't interfere like that." "Just leave that poor woman alone," Mrs. Morley went on, and seemed not even to have heard what Father said. "Just leave her alone, and the grave, too." Lynn got up from the table and looked at the clock in the kitchen, 10 to 7. She got her jacket from the hall closet and a flashlight from the shelf. "Where are you going, Lynn?" Father asked. "I have to go somewhere with Mouse," Lynn answered. She went outside and shut the door. Things were moving rapidly now. Mrs. Tuggle was using Mrs. Morley in her own defense, putting words in Mother's mouth. Mouse was coming up the street wearing her dark blue coat with the hood. Lynn ran down to meet her. "How are we going to do it, Lynn? How on earth are we going to do it?" "I've got it all figured out. Tell Mrs. Tuggle that your father got her note and wants her to come down to the store right now and look over Bertha Voigt's old books. As soon as she leaves, I'll crawl in a window and do something." "Lynn, how can I do that? Dad's not even there. He's at home." "So much the better. She'll probably stay there a while waiting for him to come and open up. And by the time she gets back here, we'll have found the box that Judith was telling us about." "By the time she gets back, she'll be ready to kill us, Lynn." "We'll be gone, Mouse. There won't be a thing she can do." "Oh, Lordy," said Mouse, and her voice quavered again. When they reached the clump of spruce trees on the corner of Mrs. Tuggle's lot, however, they saw the front door of the old house open, and Mrs. Tuggle came out with a basket over her arm. "She's going shopping," Lynn whispered. "Mouse, we're in luck. Hurry, get in here." They moved back in the pine trees and crouched down, waiting till the old woman passed. Mrs. Tuggle walked rapidly, as though helped along by the wind, quick and strong and determined. As soon as she was a block away, the girls crept out of the trees and up the brick path to the house. Lynn felt sure she would be able to open one of the upstairs windows by taking the side steps up to the narrow balcony. It was unnecessary, however, for they discovered that the back door had been left unlocked, not uncommon in this small Indiana town, and the girls walked straight into the dark kitchen without difficulty. Lynn flicked on the flashlight. "Don't touch the light switches, Mouse," she cautioned. "If Mrs. Tuggle looks back and sees a light, she'll be right on our necks. Let's go up to the sewing room and look for the box before we do anything else." They crept through the dark hallway, following the round circle of light, past the grandfather clock that no longer ticked, past the cracked vase, past the coat stand with claws for hooks, till they reached the foot of the stairway and began the long climb to the second floor. The sewing room was at the front of the house, next to the guest bedroom. It was a narrow room with a large closet on one side and a long table in the middle beside Mrs. Tuggle's old treadle sewing machine. There were shelves at one end over the window, and Lynn's flashlight revealed mending baskets and boxes of ribbon, trays of colored thread, and shoe boxes filled with old patterns. On the other side of the room was a rocking chair and a high, dark bureau, just as Judith had said. It was the tallest bureau the girls had ever seen, mahogany in color, and every drawer had a small brass doorknob. "That's it," said Mouse. "That must be the bureau that Judith was talking about." She eased open one of the drawers, and Lynn shone the light inside. It was filled with candles, and all of them were black. Mouse shrank back. "Oh, Lynn, don't," she cautioned. "We'll search the bureau later," Lynn agreed. "Let's go for the box." The problem was that the top of the bureau was far too high to reach. It came within a foot of the ceiling, and there was nothing at all visible from below. "Help me move the sewing table over, Mouse," Lynn said. "Maybe I can stand on that and reach it from there." The table was unusually heavy. The girls tugged and pushed till they got it next to the bureau. "Gosh, Lynn, I wish we were out of here," Mouse said, going over to the window to watch the street below. "Do people ever die of fright? If Mrs. Tuggle walked in here right now, my heart would just give out, I swear it." "I'll be through in a minute," Lynn promised, standing up on the table. She reached as far as she could, but her hands only came up to the edge of the top of the bureau. She got back down, put the sewing chair on the table, and climbed on top of that. This time she had to duck her head to keep from hitting the ceiling. "Hand me the flashlight now, Mouse," she said. And she turned it on the dusty top of the old bureau. There was the box. It was low and gray, and it had been shoved near the back of the wall, so it would have been impossible for anyone to see from below, no matter how tall. "It's here," Lynn whispered, and carefully grasped it in one hand, hugging it to her. "Oh, Lynn, I don't think I can look," Mouse bleated as Lynn climbed back down. "What if it's got somebody's fingers in it or something?" Lynn wasn't sure what she had expected to see. A sorcerer's ring, perhaps, or an ancient medal, a book of spells, maybe, or a witch's charm. Gingerly, her fingers lifted the hinged lid, and she shone the flashlight inside. There lay a piece of white chalk. "Chalk!" Lynn cried in dismay. "Good grief, all this work for a piece of chalk?" Granted, it was an unusually thick piece, not the sort that was used on blackboards in school, but chalk nonetheless. Lynn turned it over and over in her hand, scarcely able to contain her disappointment. But Mouse stared at it thoughtfully. "Wait, Lynn, I remember something. Something from the book of spells and potions about a consecrated piece of chalk that was able to keep demons away. Yes, I remember. If you have this chalk, or even a consecrated stick or sword or something, and you're in the presence of evil, you can draw a circle around yourself, and the evil can't get to you, because all the evilness breaks through because if the evilness breaks through the circle, it loses its power." "Are you sure, Mouse?" "I'm not sure of anything. I just read about it in the old book." "What's consecrated mean? Blessed or something. A priest says some words over it, maybe." "How do we know if this is consecrated? We don't. But there must be something special about it, or Mrs. Tuggle wouldn't keep it hidden way up there. You know, I'll bet it belonged to Bertha Voigt. Maybe this is what she kept in her apron pocket. I'll bet Bertha got it to break Mrs. Tuggle's power in the village. Remember that her brother said she used to go to an old priest? He must have given it to her. Somehow Mrs. Tuggle got the chalk away from her. Old Bertie knew a lot more about Mrs. Tuggle than we do, Lynn. That's why Mrs. Tuggle is so anxious now to go through Bertha's things, now that they've been auctioned off, especially her books and diaries, to see how much she knew, to make sure nobody else finds it." There was a sound outside. Lynn froze to the floor, her fingers gripping the chalk. Mouse wheeled around and rushed to the window. "It's Mrs. Tuggle!" she cried. "She's back already. She just closed the front gate." And that is the end of chapter 7.